Good morning and welcome everybody to this week's Writers Chat. We missed you last week as we took a week off for Thanksgiving, and so we're really glad all of you are back with us. And this is our place, our community, your special space where we talk about all things writing by writers and for writers. So we're really glad you're with us today, either live, we have a bunch in the chat room, or that you're watching this in the replay. And my name's Jean Wise. I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm joined today by Johnny Alexander and Bethany Jett. And we're your weekly co-hosts, and I'm going to turn it over pretty quickly over to Johnny, who's going to introduce this week's special guest and our topic.
Hey, everybody. We do hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and it's so great to be back with you again. Our guest today is Jill Lord. We're very excited to have her. She's an award-winning author of 16 children's picture books and has more due out this year, so that's really cool. She and her husband Bill have been married for nearly 30 years, and they enjoy traveling and golfing and visiting their 3 nearly grown children wherever they may be living at the time. I love that because kids do that, don't they? They just go from one place to another. I've got whole stories about that. Anyway, she loves all things Christmas, especially Christmas picture books, and a growing basket of Christmas books she pulls out every year, which she enjoys reading to her children, even though they're way beyond their picture book years. That's so sweet. I love Christmas traditions like that. So, Jill, we are so excited to have you and to talk to you about writing children's books in general, and then children's books for the holidays that can be evergreen and sell year after year after year. We're also excited that Jill is an instructor on Serious Writer Academy and has a course on writing children's books. So welcome, and let's dive in. How did you get started writing children's books? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I've always enjoyed writing, but I did not go into. I was debating whether to go into journalism in college, but I ended up doing a whole different field completely. But you know, when God gives you the gift, He doesn't let you go. So I went to nursing, and then when I had 2 children, they were 1 and 3 years old. All of a sudden, I had a fire. He lit a fire within me. It's like I have to write something. I have to write, and it took me about 2 weeks to come up with what I'm going to write, and it was a children's devotional at the time. And I knew I had to write this for publication, even though I knew nothing about it. And this was over 20 years ago. I didn't even have a computer. I hand wrote the whole thing, and took a course on how to use Word on a computer, and bought a book on how to get published. And it took me 6 months to write the book, and 2 weeks to write my first query letter, and step by step. I had I also got a book on the marketing, where to send it, and I got a year's worth of rejection letters, and then I finally got a positive nibble. And a contract with that.
Wow. During that year of rejections, what kept you motivated? Why didn't you quit?
I got close to it several times. That first year, I don't know, I just felt like this book needed to be published, needed to get out there. So I just kept at it, and thankfully I got that positive nibble at the right time. Otherwise, I might have. But I did quit for a while, and I remember getting this, you think this publisher likes it, they're going to publish it, and then you get the rejection from them. So some rejections are not more painful. And I remember I'm sitting on my back porch just in tears, in my little, I don't know, she was 3 or 4 at the time, and I said, I quit writing. And my little 3 or 4-year-old at the time, Rebecca, said, you can't quit, Mommy, you're a writer. So I was like, oh, that was so sweet. Just little things like that kind of keep you going.
But, out of the mouth of babes. Yeah.
Because rejection letters don't always tell you nice things. Like, I'm like, where's the one, how can I do better? Throw me a bone with the rejection. Right. And sometimes it's just no. And it's like, come on.
Yeah. And it would be so nice to have that feedback, wouldn't it? When we don't.
Yes. We should give them a form.
20 years ago, they used to give a little bit more than just a form once in a while. but now I mean, you hardly even get rejections anymore. It's just the silent, the silent treatment.
Yeah, the silence. And so, but I love your story in that
Yeah.
it was one of your children that gave you that
Yes.
encouragement. And how, isn't that so true? Often God sends us those nudges, that encouragement to keep going from unexpected places. Unexpected
That's so
places.
sweet.
That's exactly
That is.
right.
On that. So, did you get after a couple years? What was your first book that you got published then?
The first book was that devotional that I was writing,
Okay.
and it was,
Wow.
that was called Snuggles with God.
Oh, I love the title.
It was a little children's devotional, and it did well. It's out of print now. But
That's
you know,
cute.
during that time, you think, well, you've got your foot in the door. You'll be able to
Mhm.
get other things published. And I kept writing, little picture books along the way. It was 5 years before I got another contract.
Wow.
Wow.
It's been a long journey. So
Often it's that second and third book is the hardest because you think you've quote arrived,
Yeah.
and yet that I think that's sometimes even harder than the first time.
yeah, and you know what? And during that 5 years is when I did quit. And at first it was freeing. It's like, I'm going to have all this free time on my hands, I think it was around Christmas time, and I'll do all things Christmas and won't even worry about writing. Well, I used to always go to that Florida Christian Writers Conference, and back then it was in January or early February. And I thought, I'm not even going to go this year. But you know what? I wanted to go. God placed on my heart. It's like, okay, Lord, I will go, but you have got to speak to me then and let me know whether I'm to write or if I'm done.
Yeah.
And he spoke to me that week as clear as you and I sitting here talking. I was I forget the name of the place where it was, but there was a little swamp behind it. And I remember I was kind of so frustrated. I was just standing there leaning up against this post, and there's a tree right there. And I was just whining and complaining to God, saying, you've got to speak to me. You've got to let me know if I'm going to keep writing. Give me some kind of positive feedback or something. But, I kept hearing a nibbling noise, a scratchy noise. And finally, it was so consistent, so persistent that I looked to find out what it was. And it was a little squirrel chewing on a nut. And that's when it hit me that, what? That squirrel is going to get that nut because of his persistence.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to let anybody take his nut away from him. And he's not going to get it unless he throws down that nut and quits. So that was loud and clear. God spoke to me through that, just keep writing, be persistent. So anyway, that was my.
I love that. I love that. We're not going to let anyone take our nuts from us.
That's right.
Sometimes we're the nut.
Throw it down, which is what I had done.
What do you do then?
We are the nut, is right. Oh my gosh, That's hilarious. Could you write a children's book about that?
No, I should.
I should. That's an idea right there. Wow.
But you know what? At that award or at that conference, I won the Children's Book Award that year, and I got a couple contracts soon after. So I'm glad I stuck with it.
What years were you at the Florida Christian Writers Conference? Because Jeannie and I met there in 2007. We love that conference. So was that before or?
Yes, I was there from, I think 2000 to 2005, I think.
Okay.
5 years right in a row.
Wow.
Loved it.
So what are some of the tips that you've learned about writing children's books, and particularly not just even Christmas books, but let's start with children's books in particular?
Oh, let's see. Some tips. The main thing, and I did include this in the in the Christmas class that I taught, was like Gary Richardson. He used to work for a big publishing house, and he taught this class. And he said, he as an editor was looking for an aha factor with all the manuscripts that came through. He wanted to be moved in some way. He wanted to either laugh, giggle, or say, ooh, just something to catch him off guard or touch his heart or something. That's what he looked for in books that he would publish. So that stuck with me, and I try to include that in all of my books. Even if it's a retelling of the Christmas story or something. There's got to be a moment where the reader says, "Ah," you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
I like that. And that's something we could put in no matter we're fiction or nonfiction.
exactly.
To that, I
Right.
heard Lisa Turgis say something about you should write a book thinking that your reader has a yellow highlighter, and that every page that opens up, that they're highlighting something that gets them then to turn the next page. That there's a gem on every page.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was, that's really made me think about how when you format something, that you've got a lot of those aha moments and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but how do you I think Rebecca's got a good question. How do you figure out that awe for children? Or is you thinking of more
Yeah.
for the parent? I don't know. Which one?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually have it in mind when I start
Yeah.
out. And sometimes it takes a while to get it. And I don't submit it to a publisher unless it's got something like that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just an average book, you know. And so I don't know. I guess just working with the book, you think of different twists and try out different things and try different words, and I don't know, just play with it. That's kind of the fun part, playing with it,
So
twisting it around until it works.
is that your writing process? You kind of write the basic story and then you kind of go back and
Yeah, I think that's mostly how I do it.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't even know exactly how it's going to end, but that's kind of the fun to see how it turns out.
With the picture books, someone had said, doing this in such short word counts. What is the word count for a typical picture book? What's the range?
Picture books, like 4 to 8 year old, your typical picture book, ballpark is 500.
Okay. Is there a certain page count too that's optimal?
Yes, 24 to 32 is most picture books. I guess some of the longer ones might go to 48, but I always shoot for 24 to 32. And if it's more of the board book for the younger ones, which most of mine were to begin with, I'll stick to the 24 pages. But even on the proposals, I say kind of written as a 24-page format, but I'm flexible.
Okay.
Because I don't want them to, if they only print 32 pages, to throw it away because it's written as a 24.
Sure.
I always include that word flexible in the proposal.
Yeah.
Word count, or write a page count.
How does the proposal look different from the other proposals? A lot of us are thinking fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
How does the children's one? Do you set
actually
it up
format it
page, or do you send them in like what do they call them, a dummy copy, or do you just write it out? How do you do that?
What I learned at a Florida Christian Writers Conference, Christine Tangold, was how to write a children's proposal, and I've tweaked it since then, and it's changed over the years. But I write my picture books. I write it all out, and then I break it down into the page count, or into what I think is going to be on each page, because you have to have your words have to have, how do I say this? Have to have a picture to go with it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I can't, as an author, tell what the picture should be, but your words should say that. So I break it down so I know where I'm going to be turning the page. And then if the pictures are going to be the same on both pages, then I need to change it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it has to be able to be different pictures on each page. And so I learned that from Christine Tangold had said, that's the first thing the publisher or the editor is going to do anyway, is break it down into pages. So if you've done this for them, it makes it that much easier, less work for them to do. And they'll change some up a little bit. And also in picture books, sometimes you open the spread and there's one big picture across the page. Yeah. And then you turn the page and there's a separate picture here and a separate picture here. So you want that to vary as it goes on, so it's not totally consistent. You got to change it up a little bit. So I submit it with the pages and the spreads of how I view it.
Okay, that helps.
That does help. That's and then another question is, how do you approach writing board books when everyone says you need to be published already to break into the children's market? And what about agents who say, I don't handle children?
Wait, so what was the first
There's
part?
actually two questions
Yeah, it's
here.
only a few questions.
One is about approaching writing board books when everyone says you need to be published already to break into the children's market. Do you find that's true? And can you talk about that? And then about agents saying, I don't handle children. How hard is it to get an agent who will take care of children's market?
So I don't know if you have to be published already, because I don't know, if you submit something that's gonna, blow their socks off, then they're not gonna give you a rejection just because you don't have credits. So that's why you have to write something that's gonna blow them away.
Yeah.
That they have to publish. And as far as the agent, I tried to get an agent and I hit that wall. It was frustrating. Granted, writing children's books does not pay what fiction does, so it doesn't behoove an agent to spend a whole lot of time for peanuts, But there are agents out there, and I do have one now. But most of my books, my first 16, were gotten without an agent. So you just have to reach out to the publishers that will look at your work without agents. And again, that's going to conferences and meeting meeting editors at those conferences. Even though children's editors, per se, don't generally go to these conferences anymore. But if you meet somebody else within the publishing house, then you can always mention that in your letters.
Okay. That's a good
I'm all
point.
about the conferences.
It's a good point. Somebody asked if you had a template for your book proposal that you might be able to share with the group, or just a brief outline.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I do. From what I learned from Christine Tangvold of how to write that proposal, I followed hers step by step, and then I've kind of tweaked it and adjusted it to mine. So now I just, while I don't pull up the template, I pull up one of my old proposals and keep all the headings, and then delete everything else, and then just retitle it to the new one.
Yeah.
I'd be glad to show one.
No, we'd appreciate that. Yeah.
I don't know how to pull it up. How do I?
If you'd want to, just send it, like maybe send it to Johnny, and then Johnny could post it on our page.
We can put it in the group, in the writers chat group.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you so much. That would be just great.
For sharing that. That is great.
Yeah,
that's always helpful.
Yeah.
I'll send a whole proposal that from what was accepted.
Great, and then we'll get that in the group later today. So if you're listening to the replay and you're not a member of the Writers Chat group, Facebook group, make sure you join that so you can have access to this information. We've got some chatter going on in the chat room. Fahim, we'll take a tiny commercial break. Bethany mentioned #faith pitch, and so Sweetie, you want to just go ahead and real briefly tell people what you know about that?
Yeah, actually, Michelle Medlock Adams was telling me about it because for children's stuff, but it's Little Lamb Books sponsors it, and I guess they've done it before, but they have some agents and editors who are following the hashtag faith pitch. And so you're basically tweeting your pitch, and they're looking at those. And if an agent or editor hurts it, they're basically telling you they'll be in contact, or you can contact them to look at manuscripts. So that's happening today. So I thought that was kind of, they have a breakdown on the site, which I stuck in there. So just go look at the site and follow the instructions. They have, things to do. But there are agents and editors looking for women's fiction and children's books right now on Twitter.
Okay. That's a one-day thing? A one-day event?
Today. Yeah.
Today.
It's happening today until 8 Central tonight.
Okay. Wow.
What's it called again?
Faith Pitch by Little Lamb Books. Mm-hmm.
On Twitter.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Times are changing, man. Times are changing.
Hey, Jill, if you want to click on see it at the bottom of your screen where it says chat, hit that, you'll get to see what's going on in the chat.
There's all kinds of things going on in the chat room.
If you scroll up just a little bit on that, Bethany's put the link to that and a link to your class all the way up towards the top.
Yeah.
So
okay, gotcha.
That's what we're kind of following as you talk. That's where we're pulling off some of the questions. But we thought if you hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
That does help. Vicki said how much she likes Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. She does love Twitter. Yeah. So.
Fast
Less
pitch.
I like
You guys are
that.
funny.
Yeah.
On that way. Well, it's getting Christmas. I'm curious about your love for Christmas.
Christmas
Why
books.
don't you talk a little bit about that? And I'm curious about this basket of Christmas books that Johnny mentioned.
We do. We go all out at Christmas. I decorate the house. My kids are all, various levels of college, and I still decorate and put all the lights up, and there's more lights and more lights than we've ever had. And I hope I don't get tired of decorating and doing all that. And, we used to always cut down a Christmas tree when the kids were little and take turkey sandwiches and hot chocolate. And it's just, Christmas is just a wonderful time to make memories. Make good family memories and start traditions. And of course, we've got the candlelight service at church on Sundays. And my husband was used to a big family, and we live far away from both of our families. So Christmas Eve, we started having all of our friends over after the church service who didn't have family close by. So that was kind of our family. And we have probably done that for, 16, 17, 18 years. This Christmas Eve. Now a bunch of people are at different churches, but whatever time their church ends up at our house for a Christmas Eve celebration.
Oh, how fun.
And even the kids look forward to that from all the different families. So it's just kind of fun.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's fun.
Beautiful.
The Christmas books, I've just put them in baskets. We used to buy Christmas books every year, and we'd just pull them out. We'd sit by the Christmas tree, and several nights during the Christmas season, read Christmas books together and sip hot chocolate. It's just fun.
It's fun. I love that thought. So really, it sounds like you've collected them over the years. And tradition of, are they all picture books, or are they longer books at all?
They're mostly picture books. We have a couple of collections that are a little bit bigger books that are full of a bunch of shorter stories.
Yeah.
Again, so they'd get to pick a short story or pick one of their favorite stories out, and we'd read.
Yeah. Do you have one of yours handy that you can show us? Or
I do.
Oh, good. Yeah, show us some of your stories.
Okay. This is One Night in Bethlehem. This is a touch and feel book. And then
cool.
I've got another coming out next year. That's called, what is it called? The Noisy Silent Night. I think something like that.
Cute.
So it's
that is neat. So have you mostly focused then on Christmas children's books? Or have you done others?
I have done others. I have written several, even a couple others that have not been published yet that I'm still putting out there. But I've got an Easter book out and another one due out next year, and a Thanksgiving book. I haven't had any luck with some of the other holidays, but those are the holiday ones I have out so far.
That's great. Do you have a favorite Christmas book in your basket? Which one's your favorite?
My favorite has got to be that. I've got it right here beside me.
Okay.
Christmas Lizard. Has anybody heard of that?
No.
It's this lizard that escapes from his cage and wants to find out what Christmas is all about. So he circles around the Christmas tree, and all the ornaments tell him their idea of what Christmas is about. They're all wrong. He gets to the angel at the top and sees the manger in the distance. So
that's adorable.
Oh, I love that.
That's adorable.
The pictures are really cute too.
That might be a good one to buy for our kids and our grandkids this Christmas.
Yeah, that's cute.
That sounds super.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the cover.
Yeah.
Speaking of illustrations and covers like that, what's been your experience with the illustrator for your books? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we hear horror stories, and sometimes we see how they capture them perfect. I don't know. What's been your experience working with an illustrator?
Oh yeah, I do not actually work with illustrators. I don't have anything to do with the illustrations.
Yeah. Wow.
The first few books I didn't even see what the illustrations were going to be until they appeared on my front doorstep.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
Wow.
But the last few, they've at least sent me the file so I can see it beforehand. But if they're not asking for my approval, it's already done.
Right. That's right.
But you just have to trust that the illustrator or that the publisher. This is the first book they've done. So they're better at that than I am. So I just
Sure.
trust that they can pick the right illustrator, and that the illustrator will do their job well. So it's
I
fun.
have heard sometimes in proposals you could put some suggestions, like stage directions, on your illustrations. Have you done anything like that?
You can put them, but they don't have to pay attention.
No, no, but you can put it.
You absolutely can, although it's not encouraged. Again, you have to, the illustrator has kind of free reign.
Okay.
I have put some suggestions. I don't know. I think in one of my Jesus picture books, I suggested putting a child in a wheelchair, just to include the handicap. And they put a grandma in a wheelchair, so at least somebody was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Yeah, somebody. There's a wheelchair in the book, so it was good.
Oh my gosh. I love Rebecca's question, and this is funny. She's, where do you get your ideas? It's a stupid question. We're all brimming with ideas. But how do you know your idea is good? And, that's the key, right? We all come up with a bunch of ideas, but how do you know it's going to be that one that you say, yes, this is it. I need to work on this project.
Some people you hear are just what they call like idea factory.
Oh, yes, that's not me.
I am not. So it's like, well, I'd like to write a Christmas book, but then I think this one night in Bethlehem, I heard something in a sermon that's like, oh, what if a child was there? What if a child was there when Jesus was born? What would that be like? I don't know. It just kind of hits deep inside that, oh, that's a possibility. And there's not to actually sit down and play with it on paper. But there's definitely some that's like, yeah, okay, that's not, I just can't get it going in any direction at all. So sometimes it takes a few years to get, I've had an idea for one that years ago that I have not been able to do anything with, but it's kind of coming along now. So maybe it wasn't meant to be written back then. I'll try it again here.
But you think about that. I mean, you're talking about 500 words, right? And I mean, we can write 500 words on just about anything, in a day. And yet a really good story could take years and years, even when it's not that long,
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And
you gotta pick your words carefully.
Yeah, and you talked about having a book coming out next year. So is there like this long gap between the time you turn in your manuscript and it actually gets on the shelf? Like with fiction, it's like about 9-10 months is what my schedule was. So what's yours?
So you would write it?
I would submit it, and then it would be a year later, I guess. Yeah, a year later it would come out in the stores for a full-length fiction book. What's the time frame for a children's book?
Once it's been accepted, it's generally out the next year.
So it's still a long time.
Yeah, they have to give the illustrator time to work on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had one come out in less than a year.
Wow.
Some has been actually a couple years that it got somehow pushed back, and that was kind of I think it was this Christmas one actually. They accepted it, and it didn't come out for like 2 years, which is rather painful.
Yeah. Wow. It's a long time.
I bet it is.
I have a question.
Yep.
So do you recommend for publication credits for children's writing for magazines, or do you have any tips on how to sort of build yourself as a children's author as you're sending out proposals and queries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anything you can do to get out there. Magazines are great. I think publishers really like that, because then when you do have a book coming out, it will be mentioned in your article. So that's more publicity. Blogs, I think, are great. There's some children's authors out there that have some great blogs, mommy blogs, anything like that. Any way you have to promote your work, I think the publishers just love.
Mm-hmm.
If article writing comes easy, I think articles are so hard. I have tried, and I have a few out there, but I know they definitely come easier to some other people than some of us. So yeah, if you can write articles, go for it. They're always looking for them in the children's magazines, and I guess all levels.
Yeah. I like what Jan's made a comment about her book, because she's one of our children's book writers here today, and she has nativity told through the eyes of the innkeeper's daughter. So that's like,
cool.
and I'm hearing you say that, Jill, too, to take a well-known story like the Christmas story and try to spin it in a unique way.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's very creative. If you can, I think it's tricky, making it, adding some fiction to it and some what ifs.
Yeah.
While keeping the story true. But I think that's great, the innkeeper's daughter. That's awesome. Any kind of new point of view is.
Well, I love your question, what ifs. If we would take that no matter what we write.
Yeah.
And take that really would help us put unique twists to our writings that way.
Got to find new ways to look at new situations, Just about everything's been done.
Yeah.
Got to find a new twist somehow.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca also asked about how much time do you take on your writing, like each week? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and it's kind of embarrassing because I don't know. I write on Tuesdays. Is that bad?
No.
And we've got you on here today instead. Are we taking your writing time?
That's called batching your work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to write as much as I can. Tuesday's the day that I cut out absolutely for writing. I do have another job that I work 2 or 3 days a week. So I can sometimes squeeze some other days in. And I'm just not good at writing in the evening or when I get home from my other job. So I do better when I've got nothing else to do except focus and get it all done today. It could be 8 or 12 hours. I try and do about maybe at least 12 hours a week.
And so for you, you might get more writing done just by dedicating one day like that than those of us that try to spread it out through the week and get distracted or taken off on let other things kind of come in, I think.
Oh, I'm so glad to know that happens to other people too.
Well, yeah, everyone's encouraged by that. It's like, oh, that's so encouraging. That's so encouraging. So that's really, that's good. That's good.
I found if I don't cut out a day, there will be no day. Life fills it up.
Life will fill it up. That's exactly right. Yep. Jill, can you talk a little bit about word choices? For picture books, is what age thing would be preschoolers or maybe a little bit larger, older or smaller? I don't know. And how do you find it? I've heard both things. I've had you got to watch your words, that it's not, how do I say, too grown up, but yet I've heard the other thing, just go ahead and use the words, and let's talk a little bit about word choices.
With the initial rough draft, I'll just go ahead and put anything down, and I generally write in rhyme. So I'm gonna have to find the words that fit initially. But then I go back and tweak it, and some words are big. I'm trying to think when I was working with this editor, I can't remember what the words were. I think it was an Easter book. So some of the, even resurrection and other words like that, fine for an 8-year-old, maybe not for a 3 or 4-year-old. So with rhyming, then you kind of gotta, there's limited amount to use. So sometimes you might just have to scratch that rhyme and come up with a whole different other rhyme to get smaller words in there. And you don't want to talk down to them. You want more than the cat in the hat type words. Well, actually on some of them, but not necessarily, I guess for the younger ones. If you introduce bigger words, I was told maybe 1, maybe 2 new words, it gets conversation going between parents and child, with the child asking, what's that mean? Or, but you don't want that on every page. Kind of breaks the flow of your story. But that's kind of the fun thing to write words.
Do you find it challenging to write with rhymes? I've heard different things about using rhyming words, so I'm just curious your experience with that.
I love it. In fact, before I even wrote my first book, I had heard somewhere, just write what you know. And I had been writing Christmas cards, ever since my husband and I were married, my Christmas cards would be written in rhyme of what we did for the
Wow.
year. It's just, I don't know, I
Oh,
think it
that's
comes
cool.
more naturally to some people.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were corny, and they weren't perfect, but it was just fun. And so my first book is like, okay, I can do rhyme. So I wrote the first one in rhyme. And I have since learned to rhyme better, get the cadence and that's hard, making sure that, 'twas the night before Christmas, everything accent falls in exactly the right place every time it's read by everybody. You don't have to force it to make it turn out right. So that's how you want to write and rhyme, so that the accents fall in the natural places. Even if you've got the right amount of syllables in the lines, if the accents don't fall in the right place, it throws the meter off.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the challenge. That's the fun part. Then if sometimes words just won't work, so you got to find a new one and again scratch the rhyme and find a rhyme that works.
Yeah. It's like a puzzle, just been like figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly. And some people hate that and don't want to spend the time with it, and I get that, but I kind of think that's part of the fun part.
It is. It's part of the creation of it, isn't it?
It's fulfillment when it works, You went,
yes.
Found it. Found the right word.
But it also shows the value of, you probably have to read it out loud to hear that cadence and to hear those words. And, we've talked about reading our own work out loud. And, so do you do that, Lise?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then I can read it perfect. Then I have, when my kids, I have them read it, and it's like, okay, there's a stumbling word. Or, I take it to my critique group now, so I can hear them read it. And definitely, if the same words are stumbling blocks, I'll change it.
That's cool. Also, then, do you start out with like a theme that this is what I want to write about, this is the little lesson I want to teach, or do you come up with like maybe something inspires the thought and then you come up with a theme or takeaway after that? Or so this may be a chicken egg question, like what comes first, the little takeaway or the idea, or does it just sort of mash together?
I think I usually get the theme, the idea first, and then I get the takeaway message from it.
Okay.
With my first Jesus book is If Jesus Came to Visit Me. And that came up when I was on a run one day. It's like, what if Jesus came to visit? What would happen? So then I just had a child imagining, but I didn't know where I was going to go with that. How does it end up? So Jesus came and visited you. Then what? But it just kind of played out, and it turns out that the child gives his heart to Jesus. But I didn't start out thinking I want a story where a child's going to give his heart to Jesus.
Right.
So, that's mostly, I think, how my books have worked. And then I had an editor say, "Yeah, but we can't just publish one book. Can you make this into a series?" Like,
oh wow!
What's it going to happen if where do you take it from there? Well, then it was If Jesus Walked Beside Me. So then it was the peace and comfort from Jesus walking, and then that was my Jesus series. So yeah, it's generally the theme, just the whole basic story. But I'm sure it works both ways with people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that it's better when you're pitching your book to go ahead and pitch the series up front instead of doing a standalone? Have you found a difference in those two approaches?
Yeah, I think publishers would love series, that promises several books. However, my Christmas book, it was the publisher that suggested I do an Easter and a Thanksgiving one with it. And I was like, doggone it, I wish I would have said. So I do try and think in terms of series, although I have had success just pitching single books. I think some books lend themselves to be a series more than others, but I think publishers would much prefer a series over a singlet.
They like it. Are your critique partners all children's authors?
Actually, none of them were at first.
Okay.
Now there's a couple people that do write children's, but we're all a mishmash of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in person? Do you meet in person?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a word weavers group.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
A couple of us started a word weavers Charlotte group a few years ago.
Okay. And that, I was curious, back to the idea of ideas for books. Do you ever take a draft idea and how do I want to say, test it with kids or test it with that age group at all? Or
no, but that's a great idea though. I don't think I have.
Uh-huh.
I've read some of my books to kids at church, but I haven't had like that test market.
Yeah.
Well, I think you read some of the stories that I want to say it was Peter Pan would be an example. You know, he created the story with a bunch of kids, and he told the story through the kids, and that story just kept evolving over 10 or 20 years, you know, as the kids reacted to it. And he would switch the ending out of Peter Pan, which I don't know, a lot of people realize there's multiple different endings to that play, to that story. Yeah, and it's just he would switch it out and see the reaction of the kids, and you know, what we know is just what certain children's books or what Disney's told us about Peter Pan. Right. We think that's the only ending.
So he was like a storyteller, right? And he would.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's great.
Yeah.
James Barrie is the author.
Yes. But Hans Christian Andersen, I took a class on his writing last year, and it was fascinating to watch how he would find elements of the stories in his area. What do I say? His history, and he would take it and evolve it to a story. And then, of course, later on, it got evolved by other writers into the stories. And the original Hans Christian Andersen's are very dark and different from the Disney version of Little Mermaid, for example.
Oh, I read the Little Mermaid. The Andersen version, it is heartbreaking. Yeah.
Well, Grimm too. Those are terrible.
Oh yeah,
Terrible.
they give me nightmares.
The originals.
They give me nightmares. I can't read them.
Yeah, they are dark. For certain. So that, you know, that we talk about finding ideas. Sometimes what we might think originally isn't a children's book that we could use now. Just I don't know. You take it a unique and twist it and do something with that. And I love your question, Jill. What if? What if you would put a little different ending or whatever on that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to do that about. That's why I was curious if you've read them with kids, because you hear some children's authors. That's how their stories evolve.
Yeah, it looks like a bunch of different ways that people come up with their stories. And
on that. Okay, Johnny, you got more questions?
I do. I have another question. Can you recommend any organizations for children's book authors? Like
there's
go ahead.
The Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. SW.
It's so long.
They're great. They hold conferences, I think, either once a year or twice a year. I think that's a good organization to be in. Specifically for children, that's the only one
Is that the only one there is?
Yeah, there might be some online groups. I'm not involved in those, but there certainly might be.
Yeah,
okay.
And Jan brought up that SCBWI. I always have to say it out loud to know it does do local meetings. I know here in Ohio, the Northern Ohio group meets over by Cleveland, and they do on a fall conference, and it is a great conference to go to get those questions answered, to meet some agents and editors too. You know, it's great.
That's right, especially in the getting into the general market. Yeah.
And there's
great educational classes there too.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about the class that you put on Serious Writer?
How to write a Christmas picture book. I just go through just some points to consider. Do you want it to be, general market or Christian market? And, the page count, the word count,
Okay.
how to come up with aha moments and how to add some Christmas bling into your Christmas book.
I like that.
How to make it children
title.
friendly. And I just kind of have fun with it.
That sounds good. I don't know if we could put the link back in again. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
She's on top of it.
We're thinking alike there, weren't you? There. If anybody was interested in that. Oh, I just think this.
I have one more question. Yeah. What about? Okay, it's kind of a two-part question. Like, what's kind of been overdone so much that if we're just trying to break into the children's market, maybe we just not want to go there? And and I know it's always tricky asking about trends, but what kinds of things are you seeing that that publishers might be interested in? So it's like kind of like, what do they know? They've seen too much of it, and do you know what they might be interested in?
And I'm thinking mostly from the Christian book. I think you can do just about anything in the general market. And there are some very cute Christmas books out there in the general market. Any kind of twist you can get on anything that's even been done out there. Mm-hmm. I don't know that there's anything that's tired, that's been done too much. There's always new books coming out with the retelling of the Christmas story, but there's cute slants to them. Mm-hmm. I don't know that publishers will just publish just a plain retelling of the story, because there's a lot of those out there already. But again, if you can find a twist, telling it from the innkeeper's daughter, telling it from, the frog that jumps in, from anybody, anything you can come up with. I don't know that there's ever going to be too many of those. Publishers need and want to put out Christmas books every year.
That's encouraging too, isn't it? Yeah.
People want to buy new Christmas books. They don't want to go in there and see the same things.
Yeah.
I mean, they do want to see some of the same ones. They can still buy some of the old ones that they haven't bought, but people want to see new ones out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know what the trend is, except, whatever kind of new twist you can find to put on something.
That's a good question.
Yeah, those are good questions.
But it's kind of encouraging to know that anything that might be simmering in our minds, if it's got those aha moments, it might work. We don't have to worry about that. I
would suggest going and spending time in the bookstore. I mean, it's easy to get it on Amazon, but to actually get the books in your hand and see in there. You can see what other nativity books have been written and how yours might be different. If you want to tell it from the perspective of a camel, well, there have been some done with camel. So get those books in your hand and see if yours is exactly going in the same direction, or if yours, mine's doing that, but it's going in a different direction. And go for it,
Yeah.
That's going to be your favorite part of the bookstore, I bet. I bet that's where we'll find you.
Absolutely. It makes me sad that the children's section is dwindling, too.
Oh, that's sad. That is sad.
Wow.
We've got a couple more questions in the chat. One, Renee asked, what would you say is a reasonable window of time to submit work that has been requested at a conference, knowing that you want to send in your best work? So they've seen it, they've requested it, but you're wanting to make sure it's your very best. How soon, though, should you try to get that in?
I would get it in as soon as possible while it's still fresh in the publisher's or in the editor's mind. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if it takes you 6 months, I think much over 6 months, then the editor's kind of already moved on. They may be something similar to yours that they've got and they don't know that yours is ever coming. So I would say that the sooner the better. But again, you don't want to get it so it's as perfect as you can make it. I suggest give it to your critique group.
And you need to be in one. Absolutely. Absolutely.
They'll tell you. They will tell you. if something doesn't stand right, something doesn't work, they'll let you know. So you don't have to try and guess what the downfalls are of your story.
And they're talking in the chat room a little bit about the movie being out
Yes.
now. Is that The Star?
I think it's
I think it's The Star. Yeah, my grandkids really like The Star. It's from the point of view of the animals of the.
Oh, I've seen previews for that.
Yes.
It looks adorable. Has anybody seen it?
People in the chat have seen it. Yeah.
My sister Jill's in here, and she said it was really good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is on my to-see list.
And then the other movie, The Man Who Invented Christmas, I want to see that this weekend, about Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see that.
I cannot wait to see that movie. I'm really excited about seeing that.
I'm
dragging Bethany away from work and we've got to go see this movie. And she wants to too, so I don't have to drag very hard.
I'd love to see it. So, yeah. Is that just, comes out this weekend?
I think it's already out. No, it came out the 22nd. So, yeah, it's out.
Okay. I didn't know it was out already, because that's one I would like to see and stuff. Yes. Well, it's almost.
It looks wonderful.
It's almost going on the hour. Do either of you two have any more questions? Or Jill, do you have something else that you want to add? We kind of went all over the place about children's book writing and Christmas writing. Anything that we missed not telling you?
I don't think so. But, just keep in mind that they're always looking for Christmas books. So even if you think your idea is not good enough or there's already been done, find your slant and go for it and submit it.
And show us again your latest one, your book that you got there.
Oh,
yeah. Share your book.
One Night, and that's out now? Or is that out now, or is that coming out?
This is out now, yeah.
Okay, One Night in Bethlehem. Look at, open it up for a minute. I want to see a little bit of the cover is beautiful with that little child.
She said it's a touch and feel book, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the touch and feel starts here.
Oh.
You can see.
I love that. Oh, look at that. And it rhymes. Read us one of the rhymes. Why don't you read that one of the pages to us?
Right here?
Yeah.
If I'd have been a little lamb, I would have done my best to cuddle baby Jesus so he'd keep warm in his rest.
Oh.
So then he imagines being a cow and an angel.
Oh, that's cute. How adorable.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Bethany, any other questions? And we'll have the group come on back in if you want to, everybody, and see if there's any final questions as we wrap up. Do you have any final questions, Bethany? Or
no, I asked mine. I got them in.
And I think I covered all mine too. Jill, thank you so much. This was amazing. We really
this is fun. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is great.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those pop-up books? Remember those pop-up books? I loved those.
I love those pop-up books. The only thing I can think of is that they may have gotten too expensive to produce. It's expensive to produce picture books and especially board books, and then to get all those little things going. And kids probably choked on some and sued publishers and I don't know, crazy stuff. But I love those. They need to come back.
Yeah, those are cute.
Absolutely do.
So cute.
They still have like the flat books and the.
Do you find that you have to do as much marketing? Maybe you asked that while I was gone. Much marketing about children's books as those of us that are being dragged into marketing for our fiction and nonfiction.
Oh yeah, no, we're dragged into marketing too.
Okay.
Yeah. Just got to find different audience.
Yeah.
Except for really your audience is not just the kids, it's the parents, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is exactly the parents. And that's the thing with picture books too, is they have to appeal to the parents too, or the parents don't want to read them,
Yeah.
So kind of appealing to both.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to a little bit of the cadence if they're reading it out loud. The parents like to read.
It's fun to read.
Yeah. And stuff. Yeah. Deborah had a good point over there. In kids' books sell best in live events. Have you had any luck with that?
With live events?
Yeah. Where are you? Who said that? Deborah, do you want to comment on that a little bit maybe? There she is.
We have quite a few city festivals throughout the year, and our writing group always sets up a table to sell. And the best sellers are always the kids' books.
That's great. I have I have sold books a lot at like Christmas church bazaars. I'll get tables at those. I didn't get one this year, but I have for the last several years, and yeah, those do sell a lot.
Yeah, good Christmas present. So yeah.
Yeah, there's been a couple, actually several preschools that have actually acted out this this One Night in Bethlehem as
Oh, how cute!
Christmas pageant. It just lends itself. This book lends itself.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, that's fun. I've been to a couple of those.
I love that.
Yeah, so if you know
Oh
any
my
preschools that need
It's a good,
a
but that's
pageant.
another good marketing tip to keep in mind all together, isn't it? On that, I love Vicky. Vicky, you want to read us the story out loud?
Yeah, Vicky, you do it.
No luck,
I
still.
don't have it. It was one that I read to my girls when they were little. And at the end, the duck kept getting in these situations, and get stuck somewhere. And the end of the next page was always no luck, still stuck. And you just kept going. It was the cutest story, but I have never forgotten the no luck, still stuck. And I say it all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was a great book. I loved that one.
Yeah. But it shows, we talk about where you find ideas. I'm thinking maybe that author came up with that line first and then created the story around that because it's such a catchy line,
Have you all ever read the book Jillian Jiggs?
Yeah.
Jillian Jiggs. It looks like your room has been lived in by pigs. And it's this girl's room who's just an absolute mess, but she's so creative and it's fun. Yeah, it's one of those catchy lines too.
I hear you say
I love that.
Johnny's Googling it now.
Oh, you bet I
There, keep it.
I know what my sister's getting for Christmas.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, now look. Yeah, she said it too. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Oh, that's
Again,
fun.
they probably came up with the word and then created the whole story around it. So.
Oh my God.
Right.
I love words. We wouldn't be writers if we weren't word on that way.
Let's back up real quick to Rebecca's question about how
Yep.
much time it takes to go to the live events. And mostly it's just setting up in that one day, like whatever day the festival or church bazaar or whatever it's going to be. You just have to set up and sit there and smile and talk to people, and hopefully they'll buy your books.
I think they're a lot of fun though.
They can be a lot of
It's
fun.
just a happy event. That's much better than like book
Mhm.
signings.
Yes. And there's a lot, usually there's a lot of people selling stuff. So it's, it's craft shows and
And
whatever
people there
that
to
can
buy
be
stuff.
fun. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun
Exactly.
to decorate your table and make it inviting.
Mhm.
We didn't talk about it, but I would imagine children's book lends itself to some products that you could sell alongside your books, your stories. Even if you create a certain product,
Absolutely.
you could sell cleaning products with Jillian Jiggs
Little pigs.
or mud with the ducks.
Muck.
Or
I like to stuck in the muck.
Yeah,
Little pigs to throw at your kids when their rooms are messy. With the animals.
little stuff. You could really come up with something clever marketing. I would earn a little money probably on the side. Well, it is noon, guys.
Yes.
So we're going to stop the recording and we'll invite you those here to stay on afterwards and stuff. But we've really enjoyed you being here. And Jill, thank you. This
Yes,
is
thank
a great
you.
discussion on children's books and got us in the Christmas mood, which brings us to next week's topic. Next week's topic, we're going to talk about our favorite Christmas stories and our favorite Christmas movie adaptations. So both Johnny and Bethany and I will come prepared with some books that are some of our favorite ones to read at Christmas and why we like it. But we assign each of you guys to also think about that, create that basket of books that Jill's inspired us to do. On that. It's gonna be
that basket.
Yeah.
It could be children's books, it could be adult books, whatever. And let's talk a little, use our imagination, get ourselves in the Christmas spirit next year. So next week.
Next
so
week.
Think about that. Johnny, Bethany, anything else you want to say and wrap up?
I'm real quick. This will be really, really quick. We talked about creativity a week or so ago with
Tina.
Tina. Thank you, with Tina Yeager. It was wonderful. Recently got this book called To Create by Jordan Raynor, and have been reading it. It's excellent. Highly recommend it. So just going back to our creativity
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I'm at it to you. Okay. Bethany, anything in conclusion before I go off recording?
I'm just super excited to have Jill as our guest today. It was super amazing, and I took lots of notes, and like I just hope everyone's really encouraged by it. And I'm excited to go through your class too, because I think there'll be a lot of things for evergreen Christmas, but then you can apply the same things to Easter writing and all those evergreen topics. So I thought this was just really great. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Bethany. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
It's got me excited about her class. I think I will go check that out too. Okay.
Yeah.
For those of you on the replay, thanks for being with us today, and keep writing.